Hey everybody, thanks for being part of my latest Ask Me Anything. You know I love doing these, right? Anybody watching can leave a question in the comments. I'll try to get as many of those as I can. I think I usually get like a lot of them, but anyone who's watching who is a YouTube member or a Patreon subscriber is guaranteed to have their questions answered. And I collected a bunch ahead of time too. Look at this guy. Hello, friend Mort Gaming. Hope you're doing well. It's lovely to see you. All right, let's go right in with some questions. Oh wait, look at this. Let me hit this one real quick. Wu-Tang or Outkast? Um, that's a challenge for me. I like them both. That's hard. I don't know. I think maybe Wu-Tang. I think I like the sort of obsession with martial arts. I think that beats Andre 3000's like delightfulness. I mean, that happened sort of more recently, maybe. I think the Key and Peele sketch about Andre 3000 has like replaced the real Andre 3000 in my mind. Maybe that's unfair, but their depiction of Andre 3000 in that video is just like I don't know, he sort of reached like Lin-Manuel Miranda levels of like delightfulness. It doesn't mean I don't like Outkast. It just means that I think maybe I go Wu-Tang in this. So I guess that's my answer. I like them both. This was a hard question, and my answer does make me uncomfortable. So well done. Let's just be clear. The goal of these Ask Me Anythings is to make me uncomfortable with your questions. So live from the PSYOP takes the early lead with that one. Just got my OP1 2 months ago, but love your videos. Thank you. I'd love to know more about your username, like how it's pronounced and what it means and what language it is. Very exciting stuff happening there. All right, let's do the first question from the people who submitted questions ahead of time. Normally, I like to give myself a softball to start, but we're not doing that today. I mean, I already got a hard one from Wu-Tang Outkast, and this is also a hard one, but I spent a lot of time thinking about it, so I want to get it off my chest. It's from Mordecai Martin. Thoughts on the central premise of the Bill and Ted movies, which is that rock music can save the world. I think I'm doubtful. I'm sorry to say. I think I'm doubtful that rock music can save the world. I'm coming at this question that it's like rock music instead of a different genre of music, or even instead of a different art form. And I don't really see why rock music would be special in this regard. You know, how come it's gonna be rock music and not hip hop, or how come it's gonna be rock music and something I don't know anything about, right? Like, why is rock music gonna save the world, but the traditional music of Indonesia won't? I mean, I don't know. But I sort of feel like in order to answer the question, you sort of have to be able to answer it on that level, and I don't have anything lined up on that level. It does bum me out. It would be nice for the world to be saved. Number one, it would just be nice for the world to be saved. You know what I mean? If anyone can do that, I'll be happy. Even if you do it with like some kind of music that I hate. Even if the music of Kenny G saved the world. That's actually a good question. If the music of Kenny G saved the world, would I be in a good mood about it? Maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I wouldn't. I feel like if the world was saved by the music of Kenny G, I would actually be unhappy, because I feel like we would just be living in this kind of like terrible, oppressive, consumerist, like null state. You know what I mean? Do you remember the Simpsons Halloween episode where like Ned Flanders is like the dictator of life, and even though he's like Oakley Dokley, he's like still sort of this like oppressive tyrant, and he like everyone gets lobotomized, and he enforces this like Oakley Dokley view of life. That's what I feel like happens if the world is saved, but the world is saved by the music of Kenny G. So, maybe another way of saying is that the world's not being saved in that scenario. All right, here's another way to come at it. Like, rock and roll is not even at the peak of its powers anymore. I mean, it's still popular, but I think it's like no longer the dominant form of popular music, and it was for a couple decades back there. So why didn't it already save the world? Like, we're down from where we were. If it's going to save the world, I feel like we were at the like 4-yard line and we still couldn't get it in. You know what I mean? How, like, John Lennon already wrote a song called All You Need Is Love. A lot of people heard it. How come that didn't do it? You know what I mean? Or like, even, you know, when Elvis Presley like ended the comeback special with that song, it was about like, Martin Luther King had just been assassinated, and Elvis commissioned this brand new song called "If I Can Dream," and it was sort of like Elvis Presley's like statement of support for civil rights. I mean, this is a guy who had like refused to speak out against Vietnam and said like, I'm not going to take a stand, and I'm just an entertainer, and I got nothing to do with that. And then MLK Jr. gets assassinated. Elvis is scheduled to do the comeback special in Memphis. He was supposed to close with a Christmas song. He was like, I'm not doing that. The Colonel was like, you are fucking doing it. You're Elvis Presley. You're going to close with a Christmas song. He's like, I'm not doing that. And instead, he sang the song. It was like Elvis Presley, you know, throwing in his support for the civil rights movement. You know, this guy was like the most famous guy ever. This is like the, you know what I mean? This is like the rock and roll #1 son. If he already did that, how come that didn't end racism, right? If rock and roll has the power, how come that didn't end? I guess some people maybe think it did end racism. I guess some people think that, you know, we had the Elvis comeback special, and then we had Barack Obama, so problem solved. I don't really feel like racism has completely been solved yet. So I kind of feel like if Elvis Presley couldn't do it, why is some other rock and roll guy going to do it now? We already got, you know, Napster already fucked everything up. So how are we going to do it now? Or like, remember when the Scorpions wrote that song about the Berlin Wall coming down, right? What was it? Wind of Change. What was that song? What was the Scorpion song about like the end of the Cold War? Was it called Wind of Change or Wind of Peace or something? Remember that song was like a huge fucking hit. It was about like a dawning of a new age, right? Maybe we can be done with all that terrible shit, right? Like, people were kind of willing to go with it for a minute. People were like, okay, all right, Scorpions wrote a song about like world peace. Maybe this is it. Maybe let's try world peace, and we didn't. So, I guess I'm a little bit skeptical about why rock and roll could do it now. I don't know. I'd love that. This is as far as I got with my thought on this. This question was submitted like a week ago. This is as far as I got in 1 week. You know, I'd love to be wrong about it, I guess. I mean, I guess there are certain things about rock and roll that are sort of cool, right? It was based on like, you know, this is going to sound corny, right? But it's like based on popular forms and like folk music and the blues, and like it's vulgar. It's the music of the streets. Like, anybody can do it. You know what I mean? I mean, it sounds corny, but I like the idea that as a form of music, like, you're not required to go to like a university and learn about 12-tone serialism and like pass a bunch of tests. It doesn't have sort of like academic requirements for participation. That's promising. Like, I could believe that that sort of tradition is going to save the world before like the heavily guarded, like highly educational one will. I like that. And I like that there's like a sexuality to rock and roll. Like, I'm suspicious of any world-saving forces that would be like puritanical. I mean, and there was a bunch of those. There are a lot of people that are trying to save the world that are also like have a lot of rules about, you know, you can't do sex like this and you can't do sex like that. You know, you can't have premarital sex. That's even one that people are trying to say is like, it's a good idea. Premarital sex is like my favorite thing I ever did in my life. That was like the best thing I ever did. I mean, so I just feel like I'm suspicious of any world-saving mission where like there's rules about that, right? Because I feel like that takes us right to the Handmaid's Tale. So I like that about rock and roll, but I still kind of don't buy it though, because I feel like, you know, how come we didn't do it yet? Maybe Mordecai Martin, the author of this question, thinks that like we still haven't seen the best, most perfect rock and roll act that has the power to do it. Maybe we're still waiting for Bill and Ted. I could believe that. Okay, I feel like I gave that question a fair shot. Let's keep going. Oh, look at this. Do you believe Kanye? That's sort of a terrifying start to a question. Let me just say, I know I said the goal should be to make me uncomfortable. You got really good at that fast. Live from the PSYOP. Starting a question with, do you believe Kanye win is like I think I speak for all YouTube people when I say there's probably no more terrifying question than, do you believe Kanye win? He said that the 808 is an inherently sexual sound and that no rap music is, and that rap music is a bleep led PSYOP to destroy the youth. You know, I like how many turns that question takes. This is very funny, where it's like, do you believe Kanye win? The beginning of the question is terrifying. He said that the 808 is an inherently sexual sound. Oh, okay, that's not so bad. We could talk about that. That's what we're talking about. That's probably okay. I'll talk about a drum machine. Oh, wait, we're not done yet. And that rap music is a blank-led PSYOP to destroy the youth. Well, I'm not totally sure you blanked out, but since the year's 2023 and like a lot of shit happened with Kanye, I'm assuming the blanked out thing is like the Jews, right? That's what we're talking about here. He's saying it's some sort of like insane, terrible anti-Semitic thing. No, I don't agree with that part. But you know what? Maybe I should just make that the thumbnail of the YouTube video. No, I don't believe that anything is a Jewish-led PSYOP to destroy the youth. I don't think that. I don't think the Jews are doing that. I don't even really think, anything about what are the Jews doing. I think I probably don't agree with. I don't really agree that the Jews just get together and have their little meetings and like plan it out. I don't think they're doing that. I think they're just living their lives and minding their own business, just like everybody else. Okay, I guess in the middle of this question, there's something interesting about, is the 808 an inherently sexual sound? I don't know, but I do like thinking about that. Are any sounds inherently anything? It's hard to, I think it's hard to prove. But part of me wants somebody to prove it. I would love for somebody to be like, no. It is inherently sexual because like this frequency is the sex frequency. Like, how cool would that be? You know what I mean? If people are like, wait, we figured it out. Okay, you ready for this? It's like 38K is the sex frequency. You know what I mean? I love stuff like that. Sometimes I see stuff like that, but it's insane. In fact, it's like Kanye West probably does believe stuff like that, because sometimes I see like Alex Jones stuff and InfoWars stuff about how like, we tune to 440 now, but we used to turn to 420 or 430 or something else, and like that was Rothschild, and like it got switched because Rothschild was like trying to lower our vibration. And it's this like, I hear sometimes people talk about frequencies and tuning and stuff in this nonsensical way that like combines conspiracy theories and anti-Semitism and with Alex Jones and all this other stuff. I think that I'm not talking about that. Let me just make it clear. I'm not talking about that, man. Rough start to this AMA. Rough start when you just like, you get into the first question and by the end of it, you're already having to say, I am not an anti-Semite. That's not what you want for a live stream on your YouTube channel about music gear. Man, I got to hand it to you guys. You put the pressure on. Okay. All right. Look at Jellyman here. Can you save me, Jellyman? Is this going to be a lifeline? Hey, man, I don't have any questions. Just wanted to say that I like your videos a lot and the music you put out is nice. Keep it up. Thanks, Jellyman. Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks for looking at the music too. All right. Okay. All right. What? Oh, I missed a bunch of stuff here. What is this Fish Champion stuff? Do you know the Fish Champion? I don't know what that is. That's got bad news written all over it. And then you came back with even more of this. What's your favorite Fish Champion? I don't know. Maybe it's just because the other questions got a little edgy, but I'm afraid to touch that. Oh, and then look at this. If you haven't answered the question yet, do you know your MBTI type? That's funny. That's what I like. I like that you think this is a question that has come up before. You might be overestimating how many other people in the world are into MBTIs. I think it might just be you, dude. Yeah, I don't even know what this is. This is one of those personality tests or something where it's like it identifies your personality and you end up being like a perceiving, judging person, or you're like an empathetic, touching person or whatever. I don't know about anything about any of that. I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable. I took 1 or 2 of those tests in college and I didn't fucking know the answer to any of the questions. I find all those questions to be sort of like unanswerable. It's like, is it better to do the right thing sometimes or to do the bad thing even less times? You know what I mean? Like those, that's what it feels like when I try to answer those personality questions. I can't handle it. Or they're like, is it better to try to be organized or to have things in a way where you can find everything when you need it? And I'm just like, it sounds like the same thing. I don't know. Leave me alone. I don't know. Don't take your MBTI thing somewhere else. I don't know. I'm a Scorpio. Does that fix it for you? Okay, I was born on November 1st. I'm actually a double Scorpio. The one sign is Scorpio, then the next sign is also Scorpio, and then I have a third one, and I don't know what it is because it's not Scorpio, and I lost interest as soon as I found out that I wasn't triple Scorpio. I was like, that would have been cool. I just want to be one thing. I just want to be like one hardcore, very specific thing. Scorpion sounds good. I'll just be that. Sign me up for triple Scorpio. And then when I was double, I was like, really close. Let's finish the job. And then I found out that the third one is something else, and I lost interest and decided not to believe in horoscopes. All right. Love the content. Do you know anything about finger drumming? I'm a digital Luddite looking to buy a Machine Micro Mark III after 35 years of guitar. I don't even know what finger drumming is, I'm sorry to say. So, you know, I probably can't answer this question, but yeah, I don't know. If you're talking about like playing drums with a keyboard where the keys make drum sounds instead of keyboard sounds, I'm very bad at that. That's really hard. I'm bad at playing keyboard in general in time. My timing is so bad when I have to play keyboard. I don't know why. It's like when I have to play like one note, like if I just get some keyboard sound going or it's like a really cool sound and I just need that sound to be on like one quarter note at like one moment in the song, I can barely even do it. Like when it's time for me to push one note, I feel like I have to do this. It's like land in time, get it on the one, missed it. I feel like that's how far I got to travel just to hit like a quarter note. It's really hard for me. So, you know, I find that stuff difficult. As much as possible, I'll just try to use sequencing or MIDI or whatever to try to program the parts, you know. But doesn't that make everything sound sort of quantized and unhip? Well, it can. It definitely can. So that's why I also try to get some like guitar playing or some sort of chaos or some noise or like something in there also. Because if you have something that's really quantized and then you just put some like weird reverby noise in between it, it can make it hip like that. So I guess that's my advice. Can you do a video about how to get a ballpark Van Halen sound just using pedals, since you're the pedal messiah? Good. I got bad news and bad news. Bad news for you. There's no good news here. One, I'm not the messiah, and I would distrust anyone who identifies himself as the messiah, especially if they started out as like a YouTube pedal guy. I do not believe that there's like a YouTube pedal guy to messiah route, and anyone who's saying that, I would not trust. So that's number one bad news. Number two bad news is no, I'm not going to make that video for you. I mean, one, I don't really know anything apart from the obvious, which is that like that guy makes or he's dead now, but the Van Halen estate makes a lot of amps and guitars and pedals. So just find the thing you can afford from that line and start there. I have the 5150 distortion pedal. It's pretty awesome. I love that distortion pedal. I'm not even trying to use it to sound like Van Halen. I just think it's a cool distortion pedal. So, you know, I don't think there's like a huge mystery here. If you want to know what kind of pedals you could use to get a sound, why don't you just start from the pedals that he like designed while he was alive, and that now his son is, in charge of. But then here's the other thing: is that like, what's the point? What's the point? Because if you did it, like, let's say you decided the pedals aren't enough, you really want to learn about how he got his sound before he had his own line of pedals, and you like go on the internet and read about his early amps, and you learn about how he was like messing with the voltage, and maybe you learn on your own all the kind of stuff you would hope I could just tell you in a YouTube video. Even then, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna sound like Eddie Van Halen in your apartment or your house, I mean, if that's all you're gonna do, that's fine. But I'm not the guy who's going to help you with that. I'm not the guy who's just like, here's how you imitate somebody in the privacy of your own home. My whole message here is like, I'm trying to get people to be a little more creative and ambitious. I don't mean to, I don't want to condescend to you, but like, I'm trying to help people like do creative, unusual shit that they've never heard before. And imitating Eddie Van Halen maybe is, you could learn some interesting stuff about gear that way. That I don't think it would be a total waste of time, but I just feel like there's a lot of videos and a lot of YouTube guys who are devoted to deconstructing Eddie Van Halen, and I think they do a good job. I mean, I say that as someone who's a fan. Like, what's the guy? Ben Eller, is that his name? Or, right? Somebody figure out if I'm saying the right thing. Someone watching this is going to know who I'm thinking of. Ben Eller, I think, is the YouTube guy who talks a lot about Van Halen's tone and playing. That guy knows his shit. The stuff I've seen, I think, is well done and is accurate information. But here's the last thing I'll say. I mean, even though I just sort of like talk shit and told you that I won't answer the question, I am sort of going to answer the question. I think the trick to sounding a lot like Van Halen is to nail the playing. I think if you can nail the playing, the gear isn't going to matter. And I think that's generally true across the board. There's exceptions. It's going to be hard to sound a lot like Joe Pass if you're using like diesel amps with the distortion cranked, and it's going to sound hard. It's going to be hard to sound like Metallica if you're sort of playing like through a clean Roland jazz chorus. So no need to point that out. But I do think that like, if you can learn how to play an Eddie Van Halen thing and you can nail the timing and the feel, which is hard, if you can do that, I think it'll sound good. I've heard people sort of get the Eddie Van Halen rig and then play through it, and it immediately just doesn't sound good to me because they're a little out of tune, or because they're playing sort of stiff, or because like their timing isn't really good. And like, to me as a listener, that leaves out so much more than the gear. I mean, I've even covered little snippets of Van Halen songs to some of my pedal videos, and I don't try that hard to nail the tone, but I think it sounds good. Like, I think when you hear me play the stuff that I put in the pedal videos, that's Van Halen stuff, I think it sounds like, oh yeah, that guy's playing it. It sounds fine. It sounds good. Like, does it sound exactly like the record? Probably not, but I think it's more important to sound good than it is to sound like someone else. And the key to sounding good is to have good feel and good time. And the feel and the time are a big part of what makes Eddie Van Halen special. He also wasn't really double tracking his rhythm guitar parts. Because when you double track it, it's sort of like, it locks things down a little bit. You sort of have to, like, even if you're playing really groovy, if you're double tracking it in hard rock style, which is like you really play the same thing twice and pan it, that sort of like forces it into place. And Eddie Van Halen didn't do that. And so there's like a real spontaneity and like a really sophisticated time feel, and he could swing a little bit, and he and his brother were, the drummer was his brother, so they had this kind of like musical connection there, and they could push and pull the tempo. A riff like I'm the One, like the swing there is so crucial that like if you can nail that, it'll sound good no matter what. So I think the real pro tip here is to like focus on the playing. And if you can make a guitar sound good because your timing and feel is developed, the tone is secondary. I truly believe that. All right, let's see. I feel like I might be spending too long in these questions. But that's what we're here to do. We're going deep. We're going deep on it, on every single little thing. Oh, I missed a lot. All right, I'm sorry. Let me go back to the list. I made some promises here. Here's a good one from Jesse Summertime. Here's the next question. This is a pre-submitted one. Is there a pedal video that you'd like to revisit? At first, I thought the answer was no, because I feel like if I start revisiting pedal videos, I'm never going to even do the shit that I really care about doing. Like, I'm already such a perfectionist with my own work and my own creative work, like the music videos I make that aren't like influencer things, and the songs I'm trying to write, which is like not an influencer thing, and like the album cover I'm trying to design, which is like not just a YouTube pedal thing. Like, I'm already so like uptight and like dysfunctionally perfectionistic about those things that, like, if I start then revisiting pedal videos, like, I'm just never gonna get dressed. So a big part of what I like about the pedal videos is that when I'm making it, I'm like, it's just a pedal video. I mean, I'm already dysfunctionally perfectionistic about the pedal videos. Like, you might have noticed there's all this animation in there, and like all the little songs are getting more and more and more produced. And like, I go back and do overdubs, and like they're orchestrated, and I keep doing new stop motion animations with my buddy John. Like, the pedal videos are like already, I labor over them so much that like I should probably work less and release more. Like, I would do better in the YouTube algorithm if I like just increased output, even if the production quality took a hit. But even on that level, I'm like a little more detached and hip and cool and like relaxed than I am about my own work. So I can't start thinking about what I would revisit there. But then I thought about it more, and I realized there are some videos I would revisit. The Chase Bliss Habit video, I think I look terrible. I think I look awful. I just don't look good. Like, the lighting was bad. I had bags under my eyes. Like, I had like my hair, I needed a haircut. I looked like shit in that video. But I had to finish that in time for the day the Habit pedal came out. So I was a little under the gun. And I also there's some of the footage in How to Never Buy Pedals Again Part 2. I think I look pretty terrible. But those videos got a lot of views, so I can't take them down. Just got to live with it. That's it's something you got to come to terms with when you're a small time public figure. You got to be ready for your close up at all times. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Here's another pre-submitted one. This is from X Piazza X. Oh, this was too big for one little blurb. Were you inspired by Paul Gilbert in your songwriting? I feel like the songs are similar in a structural way. Also, there's the parallelism. He can shred as fuck, and yet his songs are simple and catchy pop rock songs with some shredding, just like yours are, but with weird sounds and effects from X Piazza X. Well, let me start by saying thank you. I'm flattered by the comparison. I'm truly flattered by the comparison to Paul Gilbert. I should say that guy can shred a lot better than me. I think we all know that, but let me say that guy can shred a lot better than me, and I have a lot of respect for his playing. I mean, he can shred, but I think his phrasing is cool, and I think his tone is cool, especially since he started using single coil pickups. I like his signature guitar, the Ibanez, and I like the shape. It's a cool shape, and I like those 3 single coil pickups. I think sound good, and his ability to like, in the last few years, he started doing these things where he'll release instrumental albums, but he's like covering songs and he's playing the vocal melodies on guitar. And his ability to follow the intonation and the phrasing of the vocal melodies with his guitar playing is good. And that's this completely separate skill than just being able to play fast and shred the way he can. I mean, I think being able to phrase is part of shredding, but it might be neglected sometimes in the popular understanding of what shredding is. So all this is to say, I'm flattered and I have nothing but respect for Paul Gilbert's playing. I don't actually think he's an influence though. And it's not because like I'm too cool for Paul Gilbert. It's just that I don't think I studied his music enough to have been influenced by it. I mean, I like what I've heard and I like To Be With You, but I've heard the Mr. Big record and like as the big one that Has to Be With You, Lean Into It. There's some songs I like there, but I never sort of like consumed it and like absorbed it the way I did with the records that I think really influenced me. So I almost feel like I don't sort of know his material enough to have been influenced by it. I guess is my answer here. But I think he's written some catchy stuff and that he can sort of be catchier than some other people who can play guitar really fast. I think maybe one thing we have in common, I hope it's not pretentious for me to say this, but I think one thing we both do is like he'll write like a major key chord progression that's kind of catchy, and he'll put some non-diatonic stuff in there. Like he'll put in some chord tensions that are not in the key. They're not like atonal and fucked up, but he'll put in chord progressions that have some like outside tones or borrowed tones. People have a lot of different ways of talking about this. He'll use tensions in a cool way, and then the melody on top of it will stay perfectly like major pentatonic. Like the chords will have some cool outside shit, but the melody just stays in the key and it lets the chords underneath kind of do the dirty work. Neither I nor Paul Gilbert invented that by any means, but we both do that a lot. That's like we both go to that a lot. We'll try to make a chord progression that's got some surprises in it, and then when it's melody time, we play it safe. But it still sounds cool because even the safe little melody gets colored by the fancy shit underneath it. That's like a nice trick if you're trying to write something catchy. All right, cool. Let's keep moving along here. Here's one from Dan Gale. Here's a pre-submitted Dan Gale question. Should I build a stereo pedal board for live guitar or should I stick to mono? Is mono only useful for recording? I think stereo is definitely useful for recording. I'm like hooked on stereo for recording. A big part of that is because I record direct. I don't mic my amplifier. I use the Strymon Iridium. It's a modeling amp. I have it right here. How's that for being a shill? I got it right here. So since I'm recording direct out of that, it's easy enough to then run it into like a stereo pedal and then record directly out of the stereo, like a reverb pedal usually is what I do. I think that makes a huge difference for recording. So I'm into that. But that wasn't your question. The question was, do I think it's worth it to do it for live? I think no. I think it's not worth it. I'm going to give you a straight answer. I think the answer is no. First of all, I assume that like we're talking about club gigs here. Like whenever I get questions like this, I assume that anyone who would ask for gear advice from like a YouTube guy is like playing club gigs, right? I assume that you're not like a national headliner coming to me with advice about how to do this. Although even then, I think my answer might be the same. But anyway, here's why. I think if you use a real amp at a gig, everything is stereo in real life. Even if you just run a bunch of mono effects into an amp and the amp is on stage, the sound goes everywhere. And anybody sitting in the audience is going to hear some of the sound from here and some of the sound from there and some of the sound from here. So like the sound source bounces around the room and gets reverberated in the room, and it'll end up being kind of stereo anyway. And that's like a nice big benefit. I mean, you might have noticed if you like get in a really cool sound just on your amp in your room and then you put a microphone on it and record it, all of a sudden it just sounds like this tiny little thing right in front of you. But when you listen to it in the room, it's like all around you. This is what I'm talking about. Like as soon as you put a microphone on it, it becomes a single mono source. If you're just standing there listening to it, it's like coming at you from all directions. So I think for live sound, where like your performing volume is largely coming from the amp, I don't really think you need to do stereo because it's so complicated. You got to run to 2 amps. The sound guy's got to be up for it. It's not going to work at all if like the venue is in a bad mood about this. It's like difficult. The one exception is if you're going direct, like if you're not playing with an amp on the stage, if you bring your Strymon Iridium to the gig and you just take the output of this and go into the PA system, in that case, it would be cool to have something stereo happen. Because if you don't do that, you're actually going to be less dimensional than using a real amp. But it's not hard to do it that way either. If you're going direct in, you can just give them 2 outputs, and I think I think it'll work out for you. So that's my answer for that. All right. What else we got here? I'm going to go back through the pre-submitteds here. All right, here's a funny one. This is from Ben Drums. Thoughts on the music in Sonic the Hedgehog? Thoughts on the song "Start Me Up"? Those are the 2 things that this guy has to know about: Sonic the Hedgehog video games and this one particular song from late in this Rolling Stones' career. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm happy to tell you what I think about those 2 songs. Sonic the Hedgehog soundtrack, I love. It's mind-blowing. Huge influence on me. The first 3 games, and also Sonic and Knuckles, which is like, the third game was 2 games. Let's try not to get bogged down on this, but there was Sonic the Hedgehog 1, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and then Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, which were 2 different games that you could combine. It was incredible. The cartridges like went on top of each other. The music in all those games I love. I think the composer for the first game was Masato Nakamura, and then for the second game, who else was it? It was someone else. Fuck. Or was it always Masato Nakamura? One of them was in a J-pop band, I think, called like Dreams Come True or something. And then also like Michael Jackson at some point was involved in the music for Sonic 3. Anyway, I love all that music. I think it's incredible. The J-pop thing is definitely there, and the Paul Gilbert thing is kind of the J-pop thing, where it's like you get some really sophisticated chord progressions and then you stick to some real kind of bubblegum diatonic melodies. The Sonic and Hedgehog games are doing that at a high level. I love that music. Some of my favorite video game music of all time. I was raised on Sega Genesis. I didn't have a Super Nintendo. And, my childhood was when that was the big rivalry, and I was Team Sega Genesis. So I felt sort of like a personal, spiritual loyalty to Sonic the Hedgehog for that reason as well. Okay. And then what was the other one? Oh, yeah, Start Me Up. Yeah, I like that song. I feel like that was like their last hit when they were like a little bit not young anymore. I mean, not that they were like decrepit and old, but that was like after the sort of like, I don't know. I just feel like when I see the video for that one, I feel like, oh yeah, these guys are now like, it was the beginning of a new phase of life for them. And at the end of that song, he says, "You made a dead man come." I don't have a lot to say about that. It just makes me laugh that at the end of that song they said, "You made a dead man come." I'm like, dude, I didn't think you were that old. Like, take it easy, man. You don't look that bad. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about this. That's the best I got for you. Start Me Up. It's a cool song. Sounds good. And they say you make a dead man come. I feel like I would be a dereliction of duty if I didn't address that. Best movie ever. I have a whole YouTube video about this. I have a YouTube video. This is from a couple years ago. I made it during lockdown. It's like the rantings and ravings of an insane man, even more than my usual, called Every Movie I've Ever Seen Ranked. I talk about what my favorite movie is. I also talk about what my least favorite movie is and all the innumerable movies in between them. It's a long video. You're going to have to look through my channel for that. It's like from the sort of earlier days of my channel, but it's on there. It'll answer your question in agonizing detail. Best Dead Milkmen album. I don't know. Are you in the Dead Milkmen? The one of the guys in the Dead Milkmen talked about one of my videos once on one of their live streams. I was very flattered by that. If that's you, thank you again for doing that. I don't know. What's my favorite album is with their most recent one. You know, I'm glad those guys are still putting stuff out. We should check out their latest. That's my answer for that. Are you happy? I'm so suspicious of questions like this. Is there's something about this that I just maybe this is my East Coast hostility, but I just assume that there's like something behind this. You know what I mean? It reminds me like when I'm walking down the street and there's somebody for like Oxfam or Save the Children or something, and they're like, "You look like a nice person. Are you a nice person?" Like, there's some sort of like sales angle that that's how I feel when strangers ask me, "Are you happy?" Yeah, I'm happy. I mean, I'm a tense person, you know. I live with a certain amount of like agitation at all times. You know, it is sort of difficult and excruciating to like try to make a living as a freelance musician in the world. You know, and I was probably even uptight before I decided to go down that road. But I love doing these Ask Me Anythings. That makes me happy. And I didn't mean to also talk trash about your question. I mean, I do appreciate the mental health check-ins. I try not to neglect the mental health check-ins on my Ask Me Anything. I do try to emphasize that. So, you know, I guess I shouldn't complain about somebody going there with the question. Do you watch the YouTube guy Bad Gear? What's your favorite Bad Gear? I don't watch that. It sounds cool. It sounds like something I would like. My favorite Bad Gear, I have it right here. I have it. I made a video about this for my Patreon subscribers, but it's Patreon only. Oh, look at this. Look at the back of this. Look how disgusting it is. I've had this since I was a senior in high school. Look at that. Look at how grotesque it is. This is a Zoom multi-recording thing. I bought it like when I was 17 or 18. It had like a built-in CD burner in it. It like gives you some sense of like what era this belongs to. I use that to do my early experiments with home recording and stuff. The only reason I still have it is because it can also be used to send out MIDI clock info. And I actually don't have a lot of gear that can do that. So it can be useful to use that to like sync my other pedals that need MIDI stuff, like the Boss Slicer. That's why I had it out. I was using this for a demo last night. So I still have that disgusting giant home recording Zoom thing because it sends out MIDI clock data. I don't think that gear as a recording thing sounds particularly good, but I've had it for a long time and I love it. I loved it. It can do this one useful thing. So I'm still devoted to it. Will you rate my band name 1 to 10? Sure. What's your band name? Have you ever heard of the band Cardiacs? If not, you will definitely like them. Thanks. I like the band name. I like Cardiacs. Oh, look at this. Yes! Exclamation points. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm too behind in the comments. I have no idea what this person's talking about, but I like that something happened that made this guy be like, yes. That's funny. All right. Look at this. What kind of pick do you use and what do you look for in a pick? Okay, I'll tell you. I use Steve Clayton picks that are 1 millimeter, and I think they're made of Tortex. I have them printed with my little logo. Can you see this? There's like a scorpion in a computer. It's like my Cybertech logo. I have these made because I lose picks all the time, so I just order them in like thousands. And I figure if I'm going to order them, I might as well get the logo on there. I like a little thick. I like it thick enough so that it's not like flopping around. I find it hard to be articulate if you have one of those picks that just sort of like flops around. I don't like that. I want a pick that can is stiff enough for me to be like forceful and exact. Those are, I think, my like values. I think in general as a guitar player is that like even if I'm doing something weird, I want it to just sound forceful and exact. Even if it's chaotic and slidey and weird and cool, you know, I want it to sound like that guy meant it to be like that. That guy meant to sound like that. And I want everything to just sort of be like I feel like if you can just be serious and like look someone in the eyes and tell them something, they'll believe whatever you tell them in general. You know what I mean? Like when Mick Jagger says, like, you made a dead man come. Like, I'm just like, oh, okay. Somehow I believe it. You know what I mean? There's a power in just sort of like stating the thing, you know? So whatever the thing is, just say it. You know what I mean? So for some reason, that to me is why I need a guitar pick to be sort of like a millimeter thick. Is that like I don't want it to flop around. If I'm playing notes, I don't want it to be like blah 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 blah. I want it to be like tick 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 tick. And if I need to play legato, if I need to slide, then I do it with the left hand. Or I don't know, I use an expression pedal or something. There are ways to do it, but I feel like it's easier to start stiff and then loosen up with your playing, with your effects, than it is to start sort of wavy and sloppy and then sharpen it later. So I want the pick to be like, you know, kind of macho. I want the pick to be like tick, tick, tick. And then I'll just get away from that as needed using technique. So that's my answer to that question. It's amazing that people even care what kind of pick I use, you know? I mean, who asked this question? Rory Graham? You're going to be okay no matter what. You know that, right? You're going to be like, you should just buy the kind of pick I hate and then try to make it work. That would go well. Buy the sort of floppy, weak pick that I just said was like a fucking waste. Buy that and then see if you can make something cool happen with the sloppy playing. See if you can make like blah, 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 blah. See if you can write the greatest blah, blah, blah song ever and like just get to that vibe and own the vibe. Be like, I'm going to own the vibe of blah, 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 and I'm just going to go as far into that as I can, and that's going to be that. The songs that do that are cool. Like All By Myself by Eric Carmen. You know that song? All by myself. Don't want to be. That's just the song for like being a lonely asshole. You know what I mean? He was like, I'm going to take the vibe where it's just, I feel all by myself. And I'm going to just write the song that like nails that feeling completely and exactly. And I'm just going to be the guy that owns that. Much like the way Mick Jagger said to himself, I am going to be the man who owns You Made a Dead Man Come. I'm going to be the guy who just like declares that as a vibe. And I'm going to stake that out as my little territory. And I'm going to be the mayor of that little territory. And that territory is You Made a Dead Man Come. I'm going to own that. So do that with the sloppy pick. All right. Oh, I like this. I believe that you use that pick. Thanks, man. That's what I'm saying. This is exactly what I'm saying. Is if you just look at the camera and tell people this is the pick that I use, they'll believe you. People will believe whatever you tell them. All you got to do is just like get to the fucking point. You know, if you can just like say what you mean at all times, you know what I mean? People will just be like, yeah, I believe that guy. What are your thoughts on how useful the Chase Bliss Mood is for live music? I think it's definitely useful. Just use the left side. People use the right side too, but people who use the right side live are like good at doing looping and good at sort of like improvising live and stepping on stuff in time and like working with drones. I'm not good at any of that. You can use the Mood live if you just use the left side as an effects pedal. I have a YouTube video about the Mood called How to Be Advanced. All of the pro tips in that video are left side pro tips. And the pedal can also store some presets. So pick your two favorites, put them in as presets. You can use the left side of that pedal as like a fairly normal effect as opposed to a sort of chaos agent or like drone instrument. You can use it as just like an effect with a reliable setting if you watch my video about it. Sorry for being a shill for my own videos, but I did address this exact question. All right, here's one from one of my Patreon subs. More pedal videos from David Somerville. I know I haven't put some up. I know I'm a little behind. I'm working on some big ones. I'm working on a video called Expression Pedals How to Be Advanced, which I think will be cool. And then I'm working on another one that I can't talk about because it's for something that's unreleased, but it's going to be a big deal when it comes out. But also this year, I'm aware that I haven't been putting out as many pedal videos as I want to. I made that music video for Listen to Her Heart. I made a music video where I'm inside a graphing calculator the whole time, and it was a huge amount of work. My buddy John Marty helped me with it, but the video is like me inside a graphing calculator, and it I underestimated how hard it would be to finish that. And then also I'm like really trying to finish writing the songs on my next album, and those sorts of creative investments, it's just hard for me to balance that against making the YouTube pedal videos. I don't feel like I'm doing a good job about it. I feel like I just have to somehow do both, more of both all the time. You know, I would love to be able to like also eliminate all of the fear-based procrastination from my life. You guys ever like fantasize about what it would be like to just eliminate the time you waste from fear-based procrastination? That if I could just not do that anymore, I would be a completely different person. You know, but do I even want to be a completely different person? I don't know. I feel like I do, but then maybe I don't. All right, here's one from another Patreon person. I promise to answer these. This is from no, not a Patreon person, a YouTube member, Tad. When you're out and about, away from your gear or a creative environment, and inspiration knocks anyway, how do you sustain, hold on to the feeling of those moments, not just the idea? It's hard. I mean, I'll tell you what I got for this, but it is hard. Like, let's just be real. It's hard to do that. I mean, one thing I do try to do is to get the idea down, and it's kind of possible to do that with the smartphones. Like, you can make a little voice memo or make a little video. You can sort of capture the moment to some extent. That I would say do that. I also like to write stuff down by hand. Like, if I try to have a notebook around and pens, and I'll try to write something down in the notebook, because I feel like there is a vibe there, like the handwriting in the notebook. I mean, this is superstitious, but I do feel like you get something from the notebook and from your own shitty handwriting. You know, there's a little bit more there. There's like more vibe there than just whatever you wrote in your notes app. So I try to get the idea down as much as possible. And I try to write down like whatever it is about the vibe is the thing I care about, you know. But I think there's another important thing to this, which is that then at some point you like get back to your studio, or you get back to where you can try to make the thing. And at that point, it happens to me a lot that I'll try the thing that I thought would sound cool, and it doesn't sound cool. You know, sometimes it'll be a riff that I want to play in my mind, or it'll be an idea to combine effects, or I'll see something and be like, ooh, I want to use that sound in my way. And then when I plug in the sound, or when I try to play the thing, it just doesn't sound good. I mean, sometimes it does, but it happens to me a lot. That like when I finally get my chance to play the thing that is what I've been waiting to play, that I want to try because I heard it in my mind first, or I like saw it somewhere, it happens so much that it doesn't sound as good as I thought it would, that it doesn't even bother me anymore. And I've developed like two ways to deal with this. One is to try to just have so many ideas that after many of them are eliminated because it didn't sound good when you tried it, you're still above zero. You know, one way to handle this is to just like accept the fact that certain things aren't going to be as cool as you thought, and just try to have enough ideas so that if like 5% of them survive, you know, you got something to work on. So, and there are ways to try to be sensitive or perceptive. Like there's ways to try to just, I had a boxing coach. I trained for a little while in this boxing gym, and the guy who ran it said, we delete most of what we experience. It was like boxing related somehow. You know, it's around you all the time. And if you realize that you're doing that, sometimes you can like try to delete a little bit less. And you might notice that like the sound of the two different cars going by is like a cool rhythm, and you might be able to use something with that. Or you might notice that like I live in New York City on the East Coast, and like a week or two ago, there were those wildfires in Canada. And so like the air in New York got all fucked up. It's like the air was poison. And if you went outside, it like smelled like somebody was burning wood right nearby. And the sky was all these fucking weird colors. Like the sky was orange and it looked like there was just this sort of like poison haze in the air. Now it was disturbing. I don't want to make light of the situation here. It was very disturbing, and I was alarmed. Like the fact that people were saying like the masks you used for the pandemic could also be used to filter out the poison air. It's just like I was very aware that like the world seems to be ending around us. Very upsetting. That's number one. The reason I bring it up was that like I did think that the sky looks cool when it was filled with like the poison fumes and like it was just sort of hazy and yellow all day long. I did think like that does look cool. I spent a lot of time making my little music videos look like this, What's my point? Oh yeah. So, the next time there's like a poison air crisis in your town, try not to delete all of it. You know what I mean? Like see if you can grab a vibe somewhere. There's vibes all around us, and like there's ways to try to just, with little exercise you could play is like, well, how much am I deleting right now of all the things that I'm sort of hearing and seeing that my mind is sort of like tuning out so that I can think about whatever I think I'm supposed to be thinking about? What if instead of whatever I'm supposed to be thinking about, I like try to not delete all the stuff? You can try to train yourself a little bit to like go through life like that. You might end up getting more ideas and more inspirations. And the whole goal there is to just get so many that you can reject the ones that don't work and still have something. Okay, that was number one. Number two, what do you do with the fact that it can be so hard to capture the original vibe? Well, when you go home and you plug in the thing and you play the thing and you hope it's going to sound one way and it doesn't sound that way, right at that moment, there's like two different things you can do. One is you can pick up the piece of gear and start turning knobs to try to make it sound like what you wanted. The other thing is to forget what you wanted and listen to the thing in front of you and try to have a new idea that would work with that sound. The better I've gotten at this second thing, like the better work I've done. And I think like a lot of the stuff I do on my YouTube channel that people think is original and different, and is like why I do Ask Me Anythings, and like people have questions about my pick and all this other shit. I think it's because I got good at like being willing to abandon the idea I thought I cared about and listen to the thing that's right in front of me that's not the thing I thought I cared about. Let's say like I find out that a big part of, I'm going to make up an example, right? Let's say that like a big part of why Back in the Saddle Again by Aerosmith sounds as cool as it does is that the bass is most of this frequencies and the guitar is just this like fizzy little fuzz thing. And I'm like, oh, I'm making that. I don't even know if that's true, but let's pretend it's true that you found out that like what you thought was a really big guitar tone was just sort of a bass with then a fizzy fuzz guitar on top of it that's kind of small. And then you pull out your fuzz and you try to make it sound as fizzy and tiny as possible. And as soon as you do, you just think, oh, that sounds terrible. That's not what I wanted. It doesn't sound like Aerosmith. That doesn't sound like the thing. You could start turning the knobs to try to make it sound like Back in the Saddle. That's what I'm saying. Don't do. Spend another second with the tone you thought is terrible and try to do that. And you might think, well, I don't know how to write to a sound like that. That sounds really stupid. It just sounds like a broken toy. And I'm like, yeah, all right, right. Try to now imagine what's the riff that a broken toy will play. And if you can start to actually get good at that, like use your imagination or like try to imagine what is the thing that this sound would be good for. If you can play the thing that would be good for the sound that's in front of you, the better you get at that, the better stuff will sound. I mean, that's a cool exercise to be good at. So sometimes the inspiration that you think is what you care about is like not really the thing. Sometimes the value of the inspiration is that it comes to you and then you try to get it and that fails. And then you get this other thing that has nothing to do with what you thought you were trying to do. Sometimes that is what the inspiration was for in the first place. Okay. All right. So that's my answer to, I never put that one on the screen. That's my answer for Tato. I hope that helps, man. Oh, here's an interesting one. Do you struggle to keep band members dedicated? Not anymore, because I just pay the guys in Cyber Attack. The guys who play on my records or in my live band, I just pay them, which I'm happy to do, because I want them to be like enthusiastic, and I want them to I value them. I want them to be compensated for their work. And I also feel like I'm in charge. It would be unrealistic to expect people to show up and be responsible and learn the material and give a fuck if it's not even their project. So I'm happy to pay them. I try to look out for them in that way. I try to be upfront about, like, here's what the rehearsal requirements are. Here's what I'm hoping you can do. Here's what I want at the gig. Are you cool with this much money? How much money do you need? Like, I try to work it out so that everybody knows. I wasn't a band that was a real band where, like, nobody's getting paid and you're all sort of sharing the dream together. And for many years, everybody was dedicated. But if everybody's dedicated, what are you going to do if you have like a big disagreement about what the band logo should be, or what font the band font should be, or what the first song on the album should be? I mean, we had disagreements like that all the time, which is what you get when you have a bunch of guys who are dedicated. If they're going to do it for free, people are going to want to feel like they're expressing themselves, and if you have a disagreement about what the cool thing is, people whose only return is being able to express themselves are going to, like, really give a fuck about the disagreement. So, it's hard no matter what, I guess is what I'm saying. It's hard no matter what. Are you in New Jersey or New York? I live in Manhattan, but I was raised in New Jersey. What's the average pay for a club show? I mean, it depends. It's probably not good. It depends. Like, there's either they pass the tip cup around like a Rockwood Music Hall, in which case, like, you're lucky if you get whatever you get. Otherwise, at a club show, it's like you get a cut of whatever tickets you sell. They have someone working at the door, and every time someone walks into the show, they're asked, what band are you here to see? And then whatever they say, that band gets a little tally. And then, the payouts are split from all the bands based on who came to see what. So, I don't know if you get, like, if the ticket is like $10 to $20 and you're splitting with the venue, you could do the math. All right. I need to do like some shorter ones because I've been going so deep. I need to like do a nice softball. I haven't done a lot of softballs yet. All right, here this is, let's say this is all right. Here we go. Do you buy pedals for your own money? If you do you use them for music, or you sell them aftermarket, or pedals stored on shelves waiting for their golden hour? I don't buy them with my own money. I get them for free to make influencer videos about. In fact, I'm even paid to make the videos. I haven't bought a pedal in a couple years. I have so many that if I don't use one, I'll sell it on Reverb after a while. If I haven't used it recently on one of my own things, I'll sell them. And if I want something that I don't have, that I can't just get for free because of my influencer bullshit, then I will just try to make something else I have sound like it. Not buying pedals for me has become the sort of like limitation that makes me creative. There's so many options, there's so many different pedals in the world, there's so many different types of music, there's so many different things you could do, there's so many notes you can play, there's so many different vibes you could try to capture. It's like endless, right? How do you decide to do one thing? One way I sort of impose limitations on myself to force me to do anything is to just say, well, I'm not going to buy pedals. So if there's something I need to do and I don't have the pedal for it, I just look around and try to make something else do that. And even if I don't get close, it usually ends up being interesting, and I make it do something else that I'm glad I have and was more original. So I don't have to buy pedals. And then in terms of selling them, I'm not really worried about trying to sell them at the right golden hour, like trying to play the market or like be savvy. I'm not really trying to do that. anytime I sell anything on Reverb, I mark the condition as excellent, even if it's better than excellent. Sometimes I have stuff that was like, barely played at all, or I played it, but it just lived on my desk and like I never dropped it or anything. So maybe I could list it for better than excellent condition, but I never do because I don't want anyone to be like, there was a tiny scratch and I didn't see the scratch, and I don't want to have to like issue a return or deal with some Reverb customer bullshit thing. So I just list it as excellent, and I don't, whatever money I make on it, as I'm just happy to get. A lot of people are asking about multi-effects. Does the H9 make most other pedals obsolete? I mean, if you already have one, it might. If you don't already have one and you just want to buy one particular pedal, I think it's nice to be able to buy one particular pedal. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that we should just live in a world where the H9 is the only thing. Not everybody wants that much. If you just want like if you just want the Boss graphic EQ, that's all you want. I think it's cool that you can just buy this and not have to get the H90. So I don't think it makes it obsolete. I'm going to continue talking about this question, but move to a different question with similar theme. The question is, what's the best flanger? From Tangle the Second. I like that this is Tangle Jr. We all remember Tangle the First. Now we're looking at his son. Well, give my best. Give my best to Tangle Prime. Okay, best flanger. I don't know. They're all good. I bet the H90 has a fucking good flanger in it. I had the Boss BF2 for a while because I was making a video about all these different Boss modulation pedals. That one sounded cool. Any Electric Mistress clone I'm going to like. The MXR flanger, the Eddie Van Halen one, that sounds good. I think they're all going to be good. I would maybe hold out for one that has some kind of stereo capability, because that can be cool for home recording. Just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of flanging, almost imperceptible, but enough to give a stereo image. If you record out of that could be neat. But I think, like I've said this before, like I think every pedal sounds good. And if you have a bad pedal, then you should figure out how to make the bad pedal sound good. Nothing is like better artistic training than figuring out how to abandon your idea and come up with something that'll work with the shitty set of circumstances in front of you. This is like not even a musician thing. You know what I mean? If you're like a playwright and you get to the space and it sucks, and like the theater, you can't do your dance numbers, and like the production that you had lined up is like not going to work because the space is terrible. Figure out how to make it work in the space. Rewrite the play as needed. If you can get good at doing that, like making the adjustments frantically because of an emergency, and then it ends up being good. And the crucial part of this is like being flexible enough to abandon what you thought was the real thing. You're just going to be good. You're going to have a shot. People will be like, oh, that guy's good. You'll be fun to work with. You'll be valuable to other projects. Like if you can just sort of abandon the thing you thought was important and rewrite the idea to work with the thing in front of you, that's good. Like before, when I was saying like, this is the kind of pick I use, but if you had the opposite of this pick, you should write something that works with that pick. Like you should do that with the worst flanger pedal in the world. I would be into that. I mean, because people have already sort of written stuff with the best flangers in the world. You know what I mean? Like Unchained by Van Halen. That's a fucking great riff. The flanger is a part of it. Where are you going to go from there? Try to write the worst one. Try to write something cool with the worst one. I think that'll work. What is your favorite iteration of the sweep Echo Delay? I don't know what that is. Maybe if you explain it to me, I'll know what it is. I just don't know that name for it, but I don't really know what that is. Look at this question, dude. You could have, if you could extend the life by 5 years, whose life would you pick? Hendrix, Cobain, or Whinehouse? Look, I appreciate how many cool questions you're throwing at me, and I appreciate that you're participating in the live stream, but what the fuck is this question? Like, if I could play God, whose life would I extend? I don't fucking know. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna, you want me to pick whose life deserves 5 more years? I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. In fact, I would be alarmed if anyone took this question seriously. You know what I mean? Like if you like put this to Rhett Shull and he was like, oh yeah, I think about this all the time, I would be like, oh, get the fuck out of here, man. You know, like it's fun to think about our favorite guys and it's like fun to talk about pedals, but like I'm really not trying to play God. Let me make that clear. Like I love Ask Me Anythings, and I'm flattered that you guys like compare me to Paul Gilbert and everything. But that's all I want. Like I don't want to be in charge of deciding which dead person gets to come back for 5 more years. I don't think anyone should be in charge of that. Like, let's work a little bit harder to make sure that all these people don't have to die before their time. Let's try to solve that problem. Meanwhile, no good can come from reanimating the dead. You know, I feel like we learned that lesson from The Simpsons, and like let's not walk it back. Let's not walk it back. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. All right, I got some pre-submit. I know you guys are filling up the comments with great questions, but I made some promises to these people who pre-submitted, and they're my Patreon people, so I have to answer theirs. All right, here's a good one. Here's a hard one. Okay, this is from how do you say that? Fritz Killer. If you would go full on non-toxic self-help guy, I think that's like a term I coined in a previous Ask Me Anything. If I could be a non-toxic self-help guy and create some type of self-improvement video course, what would your topics of choice be? I'm asking because your concept of the ugly win really resonated with me. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm glad anything I ever said was helpful. And it's sometimes I do think about trying to make some non-toxic self-help videos. I think what I would probably do, I'm just going to tell you the truth. I think what I would do is I would rip off all the stuff that my boxing trainer used to tell me. Remember before I told you I was training at this gym for a while? It was called Victory Boxing in New York. Anybody who's near New York, just join Victory Boxing, because there's a guy there named John. His real name is John Snow. And at a certain point, he kind of just like became my manager, except his entire management style was like using boxing metaphors. Like I would be talking about like, you know, I don't really know, like, should I book the studio to record the next Cyber Attack album? I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not sure when I should book it. And if it's like, if 5 days will be enough. And I'm a little anxious that if I book it now, then I might run out of time. I don't really know what to do about it. And he'd be like, well, when in doubt, throw a punch. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, okay. That's okay. All right. So I'll book the studio, you know? Like that's his management style. It's like he'll just use sports psychology and boxing metaphors on me. And I'd be like, oh, good. I'll just do that. Throw a punch. Of course. I'll book the studio. So my whole self-help thing would just be ripping off the stuff he said. So anybody watching this, if you're near New York at all, join Victory Boxing. It's in Midtown Manhattan. It's run by a guy named John Snow. You walk in the door, tell him that you're there because of me. He'll love that, and your problems will be solved. I know there was like a guy in Game of Thrones named Jon Snow. I don't know anything about that. Sometimes people think I'm doing a bit when I talk about this guy because Jon Snow is the name of a Game of Thrones person. I never watched Game of Thrones. I'm not doing a bit. This guy just has the same name as someone else. I don't even have problems with Game of Thrones. I just like didn't get into it. You know, when I was in high school, I played Dungeons and Dragons. I feel like I've lived it. I don't need to see the show about it. I fucking lived it. All right. So anyway, okay. So, I would just say the stuff that guy says. Like that guy has this sort of cool understanding of like sports psychology that I think I believe has like some cool self-help potential. I mean, one thing he used to tell me was that I was afraid of success. And I would be like, that's not true. I'm afraid of failure. That's why I'm such a perfectionist. I'm afraid to do something that then is bad. You're wrong, idiot. They'd be like, no. You're afraid of success. And I'd be like, that doesn't make any sense. And he'd be like, well, you're afraid that if you do if you finish it and you release it, it might actually do well. And then you're going to have to do more of that. And instead of just sort of living in your little house and working on your little things and being in your own head and making a million decisions and trying it this way and trying it that way, all of a sudden now you're going to have to follow up the thing you did that was successful with another thing, right? Like you might make one pedal video and then people will like the pedal video and your YouTube channel will explode and you'll have all these followers and like people actually start listening to your music and your Spotify numbers will go up. But guess what? Like that pedal video is successful. Now you got to make pedal videos all the time. You know, you got to make a pedal video as fast as you can over and over and over and over and over again. That might be harder work than just tweaking the thing and not releasing the thing and not doing something that might be successful. And then I was like, oh, yeah, all right. Yeah, I sort of see what you're saying there. And then I was like, how did you know that? And why did you know that? And he was like, I see it with boxers all the time. There'll be like a young pro who wins a couple fights and then they put him in the ring with like the scariest, best fighter he's fought to that point. And the only thing scarier than getting his ass kicked is beating that guy. Because if you beat the scariest guy, do you know what the next thing that happens is? They put you in the ring with an even scarier guy, right? If you're like a young pro and you've got some like little Mickey Mouse record of like 3-0, 5-0, whatever, and then finally they put you in with like a real contender and you beat him, they'll just be like, oh, this kid can fight. Let's put in a bigger contender. And if there's like nothing more terrifying, literally, to the boxer than like beating the scary guy, because there's going to be a scarier guy behind that guy. This is all according to my man, John. So anything I know about like non-toxic self-help or whatever is just going to be me talking about him and saying the stuff he says to me. He's got all these cool little things like, don't stare at it, look at it. That's another thing you would say to me if I was like getting stuck, sort of obsessing with something that was stressing me out. He'd be like, stop staring at it, just look at it. Just look at it, you know? Don't give it too much power. Don't get hypnotic. Just look at what it is, whatever it is. You know, you can either attack it or dodge it or figure something out, but don't stare at it. Just look at it. So that's that would be my avoid. That would be my advice. From Death Metal Ghosts, what are the best cheesesteak spots in Manhattan? None come to mind. I mean, this is a Philadelphia thing, right? None come to mind. I'm not sure that I would be a good judge of it. You know, I haven't spent a ton of time like having real Philadelphia cheesesteaks or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, Manhattan is like mostly, sorry, I live in Manhattan. I understand that Manhattan is not the only borough. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying where I live, it's like 95% Chipotle's. That's the thing. You know what I mean? Like Manhattan is like basically all Chipotle's and Starbucks's and Port Authority. That's like all of Manhattan. Everything else got squeezed out. It's poison air. You can't breathe, you know, and then it's a Chipotle. So I don't know. I don't know about the cheesesteak. I feel like there might be something good like out on Coney Island or something. Like there's some good like trashy shit out there on the boardwalk. You might get something there. I feel like Jersey Shore probably has some good Philly cheesesteaks. It's useless. But there's like parts of Jersey where there's like the part of Jersey where instead of just like pretending they're from New York, they just pretend they're from Philadelphia. That's like a part of New Jersey. So I don't know. Maybe if you go to the Jersey Shore, I'm sorry I don't have a better answer. I tried to take it seriously. Would you rather live in a video game or reality? I mean, I feel like if I don't say reality, I'm a wuss. We're now going to switch to toxic self-help. I did my best to do the non-toxic version a minute ago and help out that guy. That's over now. Here's just some toxic bullshit. Anyone who can't live in reality is weak. I know that's probably bad. Like, don't kill yourself because I said that, you know? but a part of me just feels like I already fantasize so much about, so much of my life is just like, it takes place in this sort of fantasy realm that, like, you know, thinking about the songs I want to write, thinking about what I want the music video to look like. And I'm so much of the stuff that I do is like inspired by being a little kid and entering video game worlds and playing Dungeons and Dragons and like reading X-Men comic books and looking at my trading cards and like wishing I could enter that reality somehow. Did a big part of my music videos is just sort of like, I will make my own reality with that, you know. What's that line? There's some 80s movie called like The Dungeon Master or something. It's like some piece of shit fantasy movie from the 80s. Some guy's being tormented by a dungeon master of some kind. And he says, like, I reject your reality, and in its place, I substitute my own. It's like, it's one of those things where, like, that's like a cool, that's like the right idea, but it's said in the dorkiest way possible. I reject your reality and I substitute my own. Like the way the guy said, look it up, just Google that line. You'll see the clip from this movie of the guy saying it. And he says it in a way where it's like someone should smack that guy. It's not because there's anything wrong with what he said, but there's like a certain tone of voice that some guys use where it's just like, you got to smack them. It's not because they're nerds or because they're in the honors class. I'm not beating up on the weak. I'm beating up on a certain type of guy who's like, it's like that impulse. You know, what are we talking about here? Oh yeah, right. Okay, so I feel like the real mission here is to just sort of like, I want to make cool stuff. I want to like make a cool record. I want to have CyberTech be a cool band, write new songs, make some good music videos. Like I want to make all that real. That's what I don't want to just leave the world of what's real. I'm trying to make the real stuff be the way that I hope and sense it could be. That's what I'm trying to do. So living in a video game for something, to me, that's just sort of saying like, take me out. Never mind. And my whole thing is like, no, put me in. I'm in the ring. I'm still in the ring. Don't take me out. I'm still working on this. It's gonna be cool. You haven't seen anything yet. My next thing is gonna be even better. I continually strive to outdo myself and like make my best next thing and like show everybody that I'm still in my prime. That's why I would never write a lyric like you make a dead man come. You know what I'm saying? As much as I admire the insanity of that lyric of the Rolling Stones, I feel like I'm not a fucking dead man. You know what I mean? I'm no, there's no dead man here. So that's my answer. I choose reality. I choose reality just like that guy that I was making fun of. All right. Are there any pre-submitteds? Oh yeah, here's one. I did. Okay. All right. Hey, what pedals would you recommend for someone who knows nothing about pedals but wants to start using pedals? From Mickey Ray 3072. People who've watched the Ask Me Anything to this point probably think they know how I'm going to answer this, right? I guess you guys probably think I'm going to be like, fuck you, right? That seems like the answer. I'm going to be like, oh, you want me to tell you about pedals? Pedals don't matter. Fuck you. Oh, you got a question about guitar picks? It doesn't matter. Fuck you. Oh, multi-effects? Yeah, I don't give a shit. Everything is good, so it doesn't matter. You probably think that's what I'm going to answer, but that's not what I'm going to say for this guy. Why does this guy get a pass? I don't know. This is why you should never trust anybody too much, right? Any sort of like public figure who has a following and people come and they ask him questions and they fawn over him. Never trust anyone like that too much, because they will be capricious and they will change the rules and they will say, you know, this one, the question is fuck you. This one, the question is I'd be happy to answer it. And I will be happy to answer this one. I'm going to tell you some pedals that I would recommend for someone who knows nothing about them. I think I would recommend getting a fuzz, any fuzz pedal. It doesn't matter. Just get a fuzz pedal. The reason why is because fuzzes can be used to just sound like really bitchin' distortion. That's like the intended use. You can use them to just sound like a totally face-melting distortion, like a Smashing Pumpkins record, and that's cool. But fuzz pedals can also be used to get very sort of weird, glitchy, like borderline unusable sounds. And whether or not you think you want to mess with that now, it'll be cool to be able to mess with that when you're ready for it. especially if you record right out of the fuzz pedal. Like one thing you can try is take a fuzz pedal, instead of putting it to your amp, just run the cable to your little home recording, whatever you have, and record out of the fuzz pedal. That's going to sound very Nintendo. So I like that a fuzz can sort of do the glitchy, like video game Nintendo, like low battery malfunction thing, or it can just be like a really powerful distortion. You get two very different usable things there. I would also recommend a delay pedal, because they're the same thing. A delay pedal can be used to just sound like an echo, and that's cool. But you can get some weird sounds too. Like if you make the delay time very, very fast, like imperceptibly fast, and then turn the feedback up, it can sort of, it'll change how your notes decay in this way that'll sound unusual and sort of fake. And I like stuff that sounds unusual and fake. Instead of having a note that ends the way it's supposed to end, you can add this sort of afterlife to it that'll just change what it seems like is happening. And since I just recommended fuzz and delay, you know what you should do? Just get the dark side from Keeley. This is a pedal that has fuzz and delay in it, and it even has some modulation too, and it was right next to me. How you like that? And I have a video about this. So get the Keeley dark side, because it's got fuzz and delay in it, and then watch my video called Keeley Dark Side, How to Be Advanced, and you should be set for a while. If you do that, you'll be in good shape for a long time after that. Any rules of thumb for stacking delays? If you're recording, put the stereo one last. If you're recording, put a stereo one last, and nothing else needs to be stereo before that. Otherwise, no, I don't know. If you have multiple delays, it can be cool to put one before the distortion and one after. I mean, if you only have one delay, it should probably go after the distortion, but running into distortion, there can be some cool sounds there. All right. Okay. What else? I got to go check on my pre-submitted people. I got to make sure I don't let any of them down. Here's one from Dylan Pasture. Least favorite song by a band you love. Favorite song by a band you hate. The harder one here is going to be favorite song by a band I hate, because any song that I actually like, if I actually like the song, then I don't hate the band anymore. Anybody who can write a song that I actually like, even if it's just one song, I like that band. I think writing one good song is an accomplishment. So there sort of are no songs I like by bands I hate. Like everybody who writes, like I like the Eagles because they've written more than one song I like. I don't think those guys are cool. You know what I mean? They seem like they might not be cool, but they've written enough songs that I like the Eagles. And I know that they're like, people beat up on the Eagles a lot, but they got me, So maybe what I'll do instead is I'll just pick someone I don't like, and I'll just try to think of the song I dislike the least. I'll just do that for the sake of answering the question. Okay, someone I don't like is Billy Joel. Why don't I like Billy Joel? I think he's a little like middle brow. And I think middle brow is the worst brow. Scenes from an Italian restaurant, there's this sort of like literary, I don't know, he's like trying to be novelistic or something in a way that I don't care about at all. You should either write a song that is like where you say you made a dead man come, like Mick Jagger wrote, that's lowbrow, or you should just like do something that is just like totally bewildering and nonsensical and like requires familiarity with like performance art just to even be able to make heads or tails of it. And that's highbrow. And I would admire either of those things more than like a bottle of red. Like bottle of red to me is just it's like, if it just reminds me of like the kind of shit they told you makes a good work of art in middle school. You guys with me on this? Like when you're in middle school and you take an English class and you have to write a book report and they're like, the way you know that a book is good is if it has a theme. And like, what are themes? Man versus nature. You know what I mean? Like anything where it's like the meaning of this work of art is that it's man versus nature, or maybe it's nature versus nurture. Like I don't give a shit about any of that. Like I don't even give a shit about themes. Like I don't that to me is sort of just like barking up the wrong tree. That's like making a work of art that is like to impress an English teacher or your middle school music teacher or somebody. I don't give a shit about that. Like I think you should either just be trying to like nail a vibe that's just a fucking cool vibe and let people figure it out or not, or just that. It's just that. I think that's it. It's just like you catch a vibe, you sort of know that it's cool. Remember before when I said I like to think about whether there's such things as like whether the sound of an 808 is inherently sexual? That to me is like a much, much cooler starting point than like themes in English class and middle school bullshit and man versus nature. I don't know if there's something inherently sexual about an 808, but if somebody wrote a song where they're like, I'm just going to try to prove that there is, I'm interested in that. I'm interested in that in a way that like Billy Joel songs to me, I feel like they're appealing to the sort of middle brown notion of like, I don't know, this song is clever because he's talking about, it's just like a novel would do or something like that. Also, the other thing I don't like about him is that like some of them, like you see the rhymes coming a mile away, like in Captain Jack, where he's like, you try to act cool, but they found your dad in a. I'm just like, swimming pool. I know. I get it. Swimming pool. Get there. And he's just like, found your dad in a swimming pool. Like, that's what it feels like to me when I listen to a Billy Joel song. I'm just like, can you hurry the fuck up? I know what the rhyme is going to be. You know what I mean? You gotta move a little faster if that's all you're going to say. And then the last thing I'll say is that I've always wished that the band, that his band was cooler, or that the backing tracks were cooler. I don't. Billy Joel is one of these guys where like I'm sure he can make any record he wants, and he's got like the best band money can buy. But Billy Joel's band to me, or the backing tracks, always sound like a competent bar band from the East Coast. And I get that that's what some people like. There's like maybe a regular guy quality there. I'm not saying that I wish they shredded up and down, but I just think there were many other 80s pop acts that had better sounding bands. I think John Mellencamp's band was tighter. I think Huey Lewis's band, I think sounds cooler and better. Like anytime there's a guitar solo on a Huey Lewis song, I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. I feel like the solos are like the saxophone solo and It's Still Rock and Roll to me is just like very corny. There's no, I don't feel like anyone's ever really sort of like trying to push their instrument, whereas like, I don't love Toto, but like those guys were razor tight. You know what I mean? Like if I have to listen to a Billy Joel song, I don't want to get stuck thinking that I wish the band was as tight as Toto, because like Toto's not even my favorite band. Or like Sheryl Crow's maybe a good example. Like her band, I think always sounds incredible, and I think her tracks sound incredible. The playing on All I Want to Do Is Have Some Fun is so good. Those guys are just like comping the whole time. There's like a pedal steel guy. He's just like weaving in and out. It just sounds like lick to lick to lick to lick. It sounds really good. Whereas I feel like, anytime there's a sax break in a Billy Joel song, it's just some like corny, sentimental 80s saxophone playing. It feels like a wasted opportunity. Okay, so what's my favorite Billy Joel song? It's Uptown Girl. It's Uptown Girl, but I guess just because it sounds like Frankie Valli, and I like Frankie Valli. So I guess my favorite Billy Joel song is the one where he sounds the least like himself. So it's Uptown Girl. You know, I guess I am impressed at how much he was able to sort of nail the spirit of like a Frankie Valley hit. You know, it does have that sort of like root for the little guy thing. You know, it's East Coast in that way. Um, you know, the falsetto is very resonant and forward. The vocal charts are cool. You know, he nailed it. He nailed it. I'll give him credit for that. He is skilled. I it's not that I think he's like a phony, or that I like the fact that he's written as many hits as he has is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, I end up saying this anytime, but like that guy's had a much bigger impact and has written a lot more consequential shit than me and my YouTube channel and my records. So like, if you have to decide between who's right, you know, Billy Joel's probably right. I mean, I remember when I was a kid driving around, I listened to FM radio in my car a lot, and like the classic rock station would play Billy Joel. The golden oldie station would play Billy Joel. The adult contemporary channel would play Billy Joel. Like I couldn't escape it. Q1043, CBS FM, WPLJ, Light at Night. It was everywhere. So, you know, that's, you know, he deserves, he's earned it. You know, when he sells out Madison Square Garden 3 nights in a row, it's not because he just like lip synced or something. You know, he's legit. Are you guys okay with this? I'm now just looking at the comments. Oh, this is great. If you were a roadie and had the choice between the bands of the Eagles or Nirvana, what would be your choice? Oh, Nirvana. I mean, I'm assuming we can all tell that Nirvana would be cooler guys to work for. I mean, this is based on nothing, but I can easily imagine that like Don Henley is one of these famous people where it's like you're not supposed to make eye contact. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I'm making this shit up, but that's the vibe I get. Like, if you're working at a Don Henley event before he comes, everybody's given this like quick little media training where they're like, you can't look at Don Henley in the eyes if you're on the staff. You just can't. If you do that, well, we're going to take you out back and shoot you. You just can't do it. You know, whereas Nirvana, they would be like, hey man, we're going to go get some Philly cheesesteaks. You want one? I mean, I don't know if that's true, but that's the vibe I get. You know, I assume a working for Eagles would be, you know, you can't look at them. Whereas like Nirvana would be pals. I'm making that up. I don't know. I like the Eagles, so I'm not, or like, you know, I just said I don't like Billy Joel because I think he's middlebrow. Some of you might be wondering, like, well, how come the Eagles are okay? And those people have a good point. Let me address this. There is some middlebrow shit happening with the Eagles, right? I mean, I feel like the one thing that I don't really care about that much is like, what is Hotel California a metaphor for? You know, are they talking about America? Is it the afterlife? Is it materialism? You know, is the myth of the American dream finally being shattered in the post Watergate 70s? I don't care. I don't give a shit about things like that. Allegories are just not interesting to me. You know, what is he saying? I don't know. He should have just said what he said. Remember before when I was talking about why I like a stiff guitar pick? Because you could just say what you mean and people will believe you. That's the kind of guy I am. I don't give a fuck about American Pie and like who's the jester? The jester with the broken crown. Is that Bob Dylan? Is it Richie Valens? I don't give a shit. He should have said it. He should have said what he meant. You know what I mean? He lost my interest. I don't care about which thing is like being represented by Hotel California. Stuff like that is just not interesting to me. But I think that song has some good vibes. Instrumentally, I think it's doing more than any Billy Joel song I've ever heard. Just the sound of Hotel California, the track, it sounds like when it's like in the desert and you're looking at the horizon and like the heat is making the vision kind of blurry. Hotel California sounds like that a little bit. Hotel California is not even my favorite Eagles song, but I feel like if you are going to say you like the Eagles, you have to, that's like level one. You have to you have to clear stage one, and stage one is like Hotel California. What do you do with that? But the real reason I like the Eagles is just because I think they have other songs where like they nailed the vibe. Peaceful, Easy Feeling. They nailed the vibe. I've talked about this on other Ask Me Anythings. And I like Glenn Frey as a singer a lot. I mean, Don Henley's good too, but I feel like I learned from Glenn Frey about how to be a singer and how to be plain. There's like a plainness to what he does that I think is actually unpretentious. So anyway, I have a previous Ask Me Anything. I don't remember which one, but there's one where it's like talk a lot about why the Eagles are cool. And I don't want to have to re-say all that again because it's not going to be as good as the first time I said it. But I can defend the fact that I think Billy Joel is like a middlebrow hack, and I think the Eagles are somehow not that. I am not a hypocrite. Okay, thank you. Oh, I like how this guy just answered it. Joseph Raines. It's definitely the halftime. Cool, dude. You're right. Okay, that's one thing you get from watching my Ask Me Anything is that I just declared this to be right. Joseph Raines is right. This is the final word on the matter. Thanks for tuning in. Cool. All right. Oh, but there's another part of this question that I was supposed to do too from Dylan. Dylan, I would never answer half of a question. Least favorite song by a band you love. That's what I ended up doing. Favorite song. Oh, no. That's what I didn't do. I did favorite song by a band you hate, sort of. Least favorite song by a band you love. This is a little hard for me. Let me think. Let me see if I can think of one. I'm sure there's one. I don't, the bands I love, I just love them. You know what I mean? It's okay with me if they make songs that are terrible because they've made songs that are great, And I just feel like, I mean, I'll put it this way. Remember when I was talking before about being a perfectionist and like not wanting to release stuff and the fear of that? Every band I love has put out stuff that I thought was bad, And so sometimes I worry that the biggest difference between me and the acts that I admire is just that they released more and that I should release more. I'm too protective of my own stuff, and that's the mark of an amateur, and that the mark of a professional is that they just like put shit out, and if it gets wrecked and people hate it, they just put out something else. I would probably benefit from taking that to heart, even though I already think about it every single day. Okay, so the fact that any band I like has done stuff I don't love, and I don't really hold it against them. But let me see if I can think of a example that would be interesting to talk about. It's always terrifying to me when I have to like stop and think in the middle of a live stream because everybody's watching. It can be like hard to clear your head. I don't know. What's a band I like? Yeah, I also tend to like hits. That's the other thing. I'm okay with hits. Oh, okay. All right. Here, I'll do this. I'll pick Guns N' Roses. That's the band I like. I don't love their covers that they put out. Oh, is this cheating? Is it cheating if I pick a cover? Knocking on Heaven's Door, I don't really like, or Live and Let Die. I don't know. I feel like those covers are just kind of like pretty close to the original, except with Axl's voice. And I like Axl's voice, but I find both of those songs to be sort of like, maybe Knocking on Heaven's Door especially is kind of just dull. It's just sort of like, it's at that tempo. It's just sort of like, oh, we're going to be here for a while. There's like, you ever notice there's a tempo where it's like, here we go. It's like that tempo. Also, there's the Guns N' Roses live double CD. Remember that? The Guns N' Roses live era? Guns N' Roses fans know what I'm talking about. I like that live album. There's a lot of cool stuff on there. It's a cool live album. But in the middle of Knocking on Heaven's Door, Axl calls for like a reggae break or something. He's like, reggae. it's a little weird. I mean, we all know Axl Rose is capable of some major problematic shit. We all know that. This isn't even the worst thing he's ever said by any means. But you should look up the live version of it because there is that moment where he goes, reggae. And it's like, okay, man. I like a good mid-concert band vamp. I like that. I like seeing what the band can do. I'm okay with that. But I'm not sure that's the way to set it up. I'm sorry that I'm just making myself laugh. I know that's tacky. I know how tacky it is. I'm sorry. I just think it's funny the way Axl Rose goes, reggae. You should all look it up. Stop watching my thing. Stop watching my thing and go look that up. All right, everybody. How long have I been doing this? 1 hour and 45 minutes. That's as long as these things go. That's like I don't know why. That's the 1 hour 45 minutes is as long as I do these. Thanks for being a part of this, everybody. I really appreciate the support. I love doing Ask Me Anythings. I really appreciate the engagement. If you want to show my music videos to other people, I would love that. But whatever you do, just thank you for being a part of this. I'm trying to figure out where I put the goodbye video. That's why here we go. Last 15 seconds was just me vamping until I could find my little goodbye video. Thanks again for being a part of this. I'll see you next time.